My boyfriend humiliated me in front of his friends at a restaurant, called me ugly and broke up with me, leaving me to pay for the dinner we ordered. As he walked out, he loudly said, "A girl like you should feel lucky I even dated you." I just sat there, smiling quietly, holding back my emotions. This morning, my phone lit up with 13 missed calls. Honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened last weekend. I keep replaying it in my mind, wondering if I imagine the whole thing. But no, my maxed out credit card and the melted ice cream stains on my couch are pretty clear signs that it was very, very real. To give some background, Ryan and I had been together for 2 years. 2 full years. Not some casual situation. We had routines. Sundays meant Netflix marathons. We survived awkward family dinners. We even tried a weird couples yoga class once. He insisted, and we both flopped at it. Things weren't perfect, of course. What relationship is? But I genuinely thought we were in a good place. We even talked about moving in together that summer. Sure, he had habits that annoyed me, leaving socks everywhere, constantly checking his phone during movies, or making little remarks about my appearance. Stuff like, "That shirt makes your arms look bigger," or, "You should try a different hairstyle." I always brushed it off, thinking he was just being honest. Looking back now, I realize how much I let slide. Then last Friday, Ryan texted me about dinner with some coworkers. He'd never invited me to anything work-related before, always said it wasn't professional. So I was genuinely excited. I even splurged on a new outfit, broke my budget, and spent hours getting ready. We're talking full glam. YouTube tutorials, curling iron, the whole 9 yards. The restaurant was this upscale spot downtown. You know, the kind where portions are tiny and prices are mysteriously missing from the menu. Red flag number 1. I got there a little late, because parking was impossible. When I walked up, Ryan was already sitting with 2 of his coworkers, Leonard and Pablo. He barely acknowledged me, stood up halfway and muttered, "You're late." I was literally 2 minutes behind. I sat down and the first thing he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, was, "Oh, you wore that?" His friends exchanged a look, and my face instantly flushed. For the record, I wore a dark blue dress that I thought looked really nice. I tried to play it off with a joke. Did I miss a dress code? But he just shrugged and said they had already ordered appetizers. For the next hour, Ryan dominated the conversation with boring work talk that I didn't understand. Every time I tried to join in, he either cut me off or corrected me like I didn't know what I was talking about. At one point I mentioned something about a customer at my store and Ryan interrupted saying, "She doesn't really understand how real businesses work," and waved me off like retail doesn't count. I've been managing a store for 3 years. I sat there wondering, was he always this condescending and I just didn't see it? Or was he trying to act superior in front of his coworkers? Either way, it was a bad look. Then Leonard asked how we met. I started to explain how his coworker Vanessa, who's also my best friend, introduced us. Ryan cut me off halfway and said, "Yeah, Vanessa felt sorry for her. I was just doing a favor." Then he laughed. My stomach sank. That wasn't even remotely true. Vanessa had actually warned me that Ryan had a bit of an ego, but told me he was a good guy underneath. Spoiler alert, he wasn't. I excused myself and went to the bathroom just to keep from crying in front of them. In the stall I texted Vanessa, asking her what was going on. Then I got a notification. Ryan had tagged himself on Instagram at the restaurant. The caption? "Boys' night out." As if I wasn't even there. Vanessa immediately called me, but I couldn't answer. I didn't want them to hear me crying. I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and gave myself a little pep talk in the mirror. Just finish dinner and get through it with some dignity. When I came back to the table, they were laughing about something, but all went quiet when I sat down. The main dishes arrived. I had ordered pasta, the cheapest thing on the menu because I was already worried about the cost. Ryan started making little comments like, "Carbs for a marathon?" Or, "That's a bold choice for your body type." Each one stung a little more than the last. I just pushed my food around, counting the minutes until I could leave. Then Pablo asked about a work presentation. Ryan launched into this big story about how he impressed his boss and was leading the whole project. But something didn't add up. Just a week earlier, Ryan had been nervous about his small 5-minute part in the same presentation. Now he's claiming he's the star of the show? It was like he was living in some fantasy world where he was the main character. Then came the bill. The waiter placed it on the table. Ryan picked it up, glanced at it, then slid it over to me. I thought he was just showing me the amount, but then he said, and I'll never forget it, "You know what? I don't think this is working." I stared at him thinking it was a joke, but he was serious. "I've been trying to make this work, but I'm not attracted to you anymore. I think we should break up." in the middle of the restaurant, in front of his friends, after 2 years together. I was shocked. Are you seriously doing this now? He stood up, grabbed his jacket and hit me with the final blow. A girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. You're not exactly a prize. Then he walked out with his friends laughing. There I was, alone, with a $347 bill for their appetizers and drinks. The waiter looked at me with pity, which somehow made it all even worse. I paid with my credit card, still in debt from Christmas, and somehow held it together long enough to get to my car. I called Vanessa from the parking lot, sobbing so hard she could barely understand me. She came straight to my place with a pint of Ben & Jerry's and a bottle of wine. MVP. Between crying and eating cookie dough straight from the tub, I told her everything. She was furious. I had to talk her out of driving to Ryan's place to confront him. But then she started asking questions about what Ryan had said at dinner, especially about work. Finally she said, Sabrina, Ryan isn't who he says he is. Turns out, he wasn't some big-shot marketing guy about to get promoted. He was an assistant. He scheduled meetings and made coffee. All those business trips? Lies. That big presentation? He made the slides. The impressive job title on LinkedIn? Totally fake. I felt like such a fool. 2 years with someone who had been lying about almost everything, and I had no idea. What else had he been dishonest about? That night, I went into detective mode. I looked through old messages, photos, everything. And there were so many red flags I'd missed. Things that didn't add up. Times he said he was working but was clearly somewhere else. I couldn't sleep. All I could do was relive how humiliated I felt at that restaurant. Then around 3 a.m., I got a text from an unknown number. Hey, it's Cody from Ryan's office. Vanessa gave me your number. There's some stuff you should know. And things only got crazier from there. First, thank you all so much for the supportive comments on my first post. I literally cried reading them. So many of you asked for an update, and here's what happened next. After Cody told me the truth about Ryan's job, how he was pretending to be someone he wasn't, I spiraled. Those first few days post-breakup were rough. I was crying, binge-eating junk food, and my apartment looked like a mess. I kept wanting to text Ryan about random stuff, then remembered everything and it felt like getting dumped all over again. I avoided social media at first, but eventually, curiosity got the best of me. I checked Instagram, and of course, Ryan had posted a gym selfie with the caption, "Level up. Know your worth." The nerve. Vanessa came by with more takeout, and found me curled up in a blanket like a sad little burrito. She's been incredible, making sure I eat, letting me vent, and never once throwing, "I told you so" in my face. While we ate, she showed me her texts with Cody. Turns out, Ryan had been telling people at work that he dumped me because I was clingy and obsessed with marriage. Funny, because he was the one who made a Pinterest board called Future Home Ideas. Seriously. Then Cody dropped a bigger bomb. Ryan wasn't just faking his title. He was actually on probation at work for taking credit for others' projects. He might even get fired soon. All those late nights? He was fixing his own messes. While I was still trying to process that, I got a call from Tina, Ryan's mom. I almost ignored it but decided to answer. She's always been so kind to me. She asked if everything was okay, because Ryan had told the family we had a small fight, but we're fine. A small fight? He dumped me publicly and stuck me with a giant bill. I kept it vague, told her we were taking space. Then she mentioned his birthday dinner that weekend, and said the family was excited to see me. I almost choked. Ryan had told his family we were still together, that I was coming to dinner, and that we had big news to share. After I hung up, I sat there stunned. Vanessa just looked at me and said, "Is he delusional or just a liar?" Honestly, probably both. That's when we made a plan. I wasn't going to ghost his family. They'd always been kind, and they deserved the truth. I wouldn't be dramatic or mean. I'd just show up to dinner, and let reality do the rest. The next day, Cody and I met for coffee. It was a little awkward at first since we'd only ever interacted through Ryan, but he turned out to be really easygoing and surprisingly cool. He confirmed everything I'd already been told, and even added more details about Ryan's lies at work. That team, Ryan claimed to be leading? It was actually just him and 2 interns. The big presentation he bragged about handling last month? He was only in charge of operating the slideshow while his boss gave the actual presentation. Cody genuinely seemed upset on my behalf. He told me he'd always thought Ryan's stories about me sounded a bit off. Apparently, Ryan had been going to work complaining that I was high maintenance, when in reality, I'd been paying for most of our dates toward the end. Because Ryan kept saying he was between paychecks, which I now realize probably just meant he was terrible with money. Halfway through our chat, Cody got a text from his boss asking if he could come in Saturday evening to help with an emergency project. Cody was bummed about it. He'd already made plans, but then I had an idea. What if Cody conveniently had to drop something off at Ryan's parents' house during the birthday dinner? The timing would be perfect. As we started figuring out the details, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan. The first message I'd received from him since the restaurant disaster. All it said was, "We need to talk about what happened." I might have overreacted. Might have? I showed the text to Cody, who nearly spit out his coffee. Overreacted is when someone gets annoyed because you're 5 minutes late. Not when you publicly humiliate your girlfriend of 2 years, break up with her in front of your coworkers, and leave her with a $300 dinner bill. I didn't respond. Let him stew. The next 2 days were a blur of preparation. If I was going to that dinner, I wasn't going in unarmed. I combed through old texts and messages, collecting evidence of every lie, dates when he said he was at conferences that didn't exist, stories about coworkers that Cody confirmed were made up, even photos he'd posted at work events that were actually stock images pulled from the company's website. On Friday night, Vanessa came over to help me pick out an outfit. I'll admit, part of me wanted to show up looking absolutely incredible, just to spite him. But in the end we decided I should go for a look that was nice, but not trying too hard. We settled on a simple black dress that Ryan once called average looking. At the time, I'd believed him. Now I realize it was just his subtle way of chipping away at my confidence, because I always got compliments when I wore it. I barely slept that night. My mind kept spiraling with what ifs. What if this backfired? What if his family took his side? What if I froze up and couldn't follow through? By Saturday morning, I chewed my nails down to nothing and run through about 17 different scenarios in my head. Around noon, Ryan texted again. "Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Wear something nice. My parents are excited." I didn't reply to that either. Let him think whatever he wanted. I spent the afternoon getting ready, my stomach in knots. A strange mix of dread and anticipation. Vanessa helped me with my hair and gave me a pep talk every time I started to doubt myself. By 5:30, I got in my car and headed to Ryan's parents' house. I actually had to pull over once because my hands were shaking so badly, I couldn't grip the steering wheel. I sat there for a few minutes, doing those deep breathing exercises from a meditation app I downloaded months ago but never used. Was this totally crazy? Maybe I should just block Ryan on everything and move on with my life like a normal person. But then I pictured him sitting there at his birthday dinner, spinning some fake story about our breakup, probably painting himself as the victim. And just like that, my resolve hardened again. I pulled into the driveway at 6:15, fashionably late, which I knew would bother Ryan. There were already several cars outside. It looked like the whole family was there. I checked my makeup in the rearview mirror, took one last deep breath, and walked to the front door. Ryan's dad opened it with a big warm smile and hugged me before ushering me inside. The house smelled like Tina's famous pot roast, and for a moment, I felt this sharp pang of sadness. I genuinely liked Ryan's family, and I knew this would probably be the last time I'd ever see them. I rounded the corner into the living room and there was Ryan, drink in hand, mid-laugh at something his cousin had said. He froze the second he saw me. Clearly, he didn't expect me to actually show up, despite whatever lies he'd told his family. The look on his face? Priceless. For just a second, I saw panic flicker across his expression before he quickly masked it with a forced smile and walked over. He gave me a stiff hug and whispered, "You actually came. We need to talk in private." I smiled brightly and loud enough for everyone to hear, said, "Of course I came. I wouldn't miss your birthday, especially since you told everyone we had big news to share." The color drained from his face. Tina clapped her hands excitedly. "Is this what I think it is?" she asked. Ryan's sister shot me a knowing look, and his dad started cracking jokes about finally getting grandkids. Ryan gripped my elbow a little too tightly and tried to steer me toward the hallway. But his mom called out that dinner was ready and everyone needed to sit down. As we all made our way to the dining table, Ryan kept his eyes on me, clearly trying to figure out what I was planning. Just as we were sitting down, my phone buzzed with a text from Cody. "On my way." 15 minutes out. Ryan leaned over and hissed, "What are you doing here? I thought after the restaurant." I cut him off with a sweet smile and said, again loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, I wouldn't miss the chance to tell your family what happened at that restaurant, Ryan. I'm sure they'd love to hear the story." The look of absolute panic on his face, just as his mom started placing food on the table, worth every ounce of anxiety it took to get there. Second update. I'm finally ready to share what happened at Ryan's birthday dinner. Sorry for the delay. I needed a mental health day after all the drama. Also, my Wi-Fi was being ridiculous because my neighbor somehow borrowed my password and apparently tried to download the entire internet. Anyway, where were we? Right, me sitting at the dining table, surrounded by Ryan's family, while he quietly panicked about what I might say. There I was, Tina and Ralph his parents, Kayla his sister, his grandmother, and 2 cousins whose names I always confused. The table was filled with Tina's signature pot roast, the dreamiest buttery mashed potatoes, and a fancy salad nobody actually wanted, but everyone politely scooped onto their plates. The first 20 minutes were pure awkwardness. Ryan kept trying to steer the conversation, shooting me warning looks whenever I so much as opened my mouth. I just smiled sweetly, passed the bread rolls, and relished the way his left eye twitched every time I spoke. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Bless Tina for keeping the conversation alive. She asked about my family, my job, the usual small talk. But then she mentioned how proud they were of Ryan's big promotion. And I nearly choked on my water. I looked at Ryan, whose face turned the exact color of the beets on the table. He jumped in quickly, going on about how his team was killing their targets and how his boss was grooming him for senior management. I just nodded along, watching him dig that hole deeper and deeper. Ralph, who's usually the quiet one in the family, suddenly spoke up and asked Ryan about the Johnson account. Apparently, Ryan had been bragging to his dad about leading some major deal. His response, though, was so vague it could have easily been a horoscope. Something about strategic pivots and leveraging core competencies. It was complete nonsense. Across the table, his sister Kayla caught my eye. She's the family's resident skeptic, the type who Googles facts mid-argument, and isn't afraid to call out someone's BS. She raised an eyebrow at me like, is he seriously doing this right now? That's when Tina brought up the future. She asked us about our big news, and whether it had to do with us taking the next step in our relationship. Ryan nearly dropped his fork. He muttered something about it not being the right time to talk about that. Then his grandmother, who has absolutely no filter and is, hands down, my favorite person in his family, blurted out, "So are you 2 moving in together or what? Ryan said you were looking at apartments again." That was news to me. The furthest we'd ever gotten in that conversation was me once suggesting we maybe combine our Netflix accounts to save money. Ryan tried to redirect the attention back to himself, bragging about how his boss had just given him a company card for business expenses. I couldn't help myself. I asked what kind of expenses he was even authorized to cover. He stumbled through some vague response about client dinners and team outings. So, I took the opportunity to bring up something casually. "Speaking of dinners," I said, "Ryan took me to this amazing restaurant last week." "What was the name again, honey?" "The one where you met up with Leonard and Pablo." The color drained from his face faster than my phone battery after 20 minutes on TikTok. Seriously, my phone can't survive more than that. Just as he opened his mouth to respond, the doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Tina went to answer it, and then we heard her delighted voice. "Oh, Cody. What a surprise." Ryan looked like he might actually pass out. Cody walked in, looking all professional in a button-down shirt, carrying a folder. He apologized for interrupting the birthday dinner, but said he had some urgent documents Ryan needed to sign for work first thing Monday. Tina, ever the gracious host, immediately invited him to stay for cake later. Ryan tried to steer Cody toward the front door, but Ralph insisted they just handle the paperwork right there at the table. Since, we're all family here. Cody sat in the empty seat beside me, the one I had very intentionally left open. No lie, Ryan was gripping his fork so tightly I thought it might snap. That's when Ralph asked Cody how the big presentation went, the one Ryan claimed he had led. Cody looked confused for a moment before catching on. He glanced at me, then at Ryan, clearly weighing his next move. Finally, he said the presentation had gone well, but clarified that their boss had presented it, and Ryan, along with the rest of the team, had just provided support. Ralph looked puzzled, and said that wasn't how Ryan had described it. I jumped in because I can be a little messy like that, and asked Cody about Ryan's supposed promotion. Poor Cody looked like he wanted to disappear. He fidgeted with his napkin, clearly torn between loyalty to his coworker and the discomfort of lying to an entire family. He mumbled something vague about company restructuring. Ryan interrupted with this forced laugh, trying to change the topic to sports or whatever. But Kayla wasn't having it. She asked Cody directly, "What's Ryan's actual job title?" The silence that followed was painfully awkward. Like the moment something drops loudly in a public bathroom and everyone hears it, but no one wants to say anything. Cody looked at Ryan, who was silently pleading with his eyes, then at me. I gave a small nod. Cody cleared his throat and said that Ryan was an administrative assistant in the marketing department. Silence. Ralph slowly put down his fork. Ryan's grandma made a small sharp humph sound. Kayla muttered something under her breath that definitely sounded like, "I knew it." Ryan immediately launched into damage control, insisting Cody was mistaken, that his role was multi-layered, and that things were complicated. But it was too late. The dam had burst, and the family started asking more specific questions. When had he been promoted? He hadn't. Why did he say he had a team? He didn't. What about the corner office he claimed to have? Pure fiction. With every question, his carefully spun web of lies unraveled further. He kept looking at me like this was all somehow my fault, which only made me more determined to let the truth come out. Tina, bless her heart, tried to steer things back to normal. She suggested we all have some cake and talk about happier things. As she went to the kitchen, Kayla turned to me and asked directly about the restaurant I'd mentioned. I knew this was my moment. I took a deep breath and told them everything. How Ryan had invited me to meet his friends, belittled me throughout dinner, then dumped me in front of everyone and walked out, leaving me with a $347 bill I could barely afford. Ryan tried to interrupt me multiple times, but his father shut him down with a look of pure disappointment. Ryan argued that I was exaggerating, that I had embarrassed him in front of his colleagues by not fitting in, and that leaving me with the bill was meant to teach me financial responsibility. His grandma actually snorted at that. Then Cody, who had stayed quiet until that point, finally spoke up. He confirmed everything I'd said, and even added that he'd overheard Ryan bragging about putting me in my place. To drive the point home, Cody pulled out his phone and showed the text from Pablo, full of receipts about what had really happened. Tina came back with the cake just as Ryan was trying to play the victim. She set it down and asked what she'd missed. No one answered right away. Then Ryan's dad quietly said, "We need to have a family discussion about honesty." That's when Ryan lost it. He exploded, throwing a full-on temper tantrum. He accused me of turning his family against him, called Cody a traitor, and claimed everyone was just jealous of his success. Success? He knocked over his water glass, pointed at me, and yelled that a girl like me should be grateful he even bothered with me. His mom gasped. His grandmother muttered something that definitely sounded like old people cursing. His sister just shook her head like she saw it coming. I stayed calm somehow. I said the only thing I was grateful for was finally seeing who he really was. Ryan stormed out, slamming the door so hard one of Tina's decorative plates fell off the wall and cracked. The aftermath was strangely peaceful. Tina apologized to me at least 50 times. Ralph just looked tired and defeated. Kayla helped clean up the water. Cody apologized too, for the awkwardness, for his silence, but said he couldn't keep quiet while Ryan lied to everyone. Then something unexpected happened. Instead of asking me to leave, they invited me to stay for cake. So there we sat, Ryan's now ex-girlfriend, his coworker, and his entire family, eating birthday cake without the birthday boy. In any other context, it would have been unbearably awkward. But somehow it wasn't. Later, I helped Tina clean up in the kitchen. She kept apologizing and saying she had no idea Ryan had been lying about so much. She seemed genuinely heartbroken. Not just about what he'd done to me, but about who her son had become. I felt bad for her. No parent wants to realize their kid might actually be kind of terrible. She quietly asked me if there had been warning signs. I admitted there had been, but I ignored them because I really wanted to believe the best about him. When I was getting ready to leave, Ryan's dad pulled me aside. He thanked me for being honest and apologized for what his son had done. He looked so defeated, like he was questioning where he'd gone wrong. I assured him it wasn't their fault. Ryan had made his own choices. Cody offered to walk me to my car, sensing I probably needed a moment. As we walked down the driveway, he told me Ryan had been having trouble at work for a while, taking credit for other people's work, lying about his role, even faking emails from clients. He was actually on his final warning before termination. Suddenly, all of Ryan's desperate posturing made a twisted kind of sense. His entire identity was built on this illusion of success. And when I looked at it that way, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I thanked Cody for standing up for me and drove home feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. Like finally taking off an uncomfortable bra after a long day. Sorry for the weird analogy, but you know what I mean. When I got home, I saw I had 3 missed calls from Vanessa, probably wanting the full story. I was about to call her back when a text from Ryan popped up. "You've ruined everything. This isn't over." I didn't respond. I just blocked his number and made myself some tea. I should have felt afraid or shaken, but honestly I just felt tired, and maybe a little proud of myself for standing up to him. I thought that was the end of it. Really, I did. But the next morning my phone exploded again. 13 missed calls from Ryan's mom, his sister, Cody, and several numbers I didn't recognize. Something had happened overnight. And judging from the increasingly panicked voicemails, Ryan had completely lost it. Final update. Here's what those 13 missed calls were about. Thanks for being patient while I processed everything. Also, sorry for the delay. My laptop decided to do a surprise 4-hour update the moment I sat down to write. So I woke up Sunday morning after that chaotic dinner to a phone full of missed calls. First, I genuinely thought someone had died. My stomach dropped. 5 missed calls from Tina, 3 from Kayla, 2 from Cody, and 3 from unknown numbers. I called Tina first. Her voicemails were just versions of Sabrina. Please call me ASAP. She picked up immediately, sounding exhausted. Apparently, after storming out of the dinner, Ryan had gone on a full-blown bender. Around 2 a.m. he showed up drunk at his ex-girlfriend's apartment, the ex I didn't even know existed, ranting about how I'd ruined his life. Understandably, she freaked out and called Kayla to come get him. But it didn't stop there. Ryan had also spent the night sending unhinged messages to almost everyone we knew. He texted Cody, threatening to destroy him at work, which, let's be honest, is laughable considering he's about to get fired. He posted a long, dramatic Facebook status about being surrounded by snakes, and how people would regret crossing him. Most disturbing of all, he sent my address in a private message to his friend Pablo, saying he was going to make me pay for humiliating him. Thankfully, Pablo has some moral compass. He immediately forwarded the message to Tina and warned her, which explained why she was so desperate to get in touch with me. There I was, sitting on my couch in ratty pajamas, yesterday's messy bun still hanging on, trying to absorb all this information while Tina apologized over and over again for her son's behavior. And you know what? I should have been scared. But I wasn't. I just felt tired. Like when your phone's stuck at 1% for hours and you're just waiting for it to finally die so you can plug it in and move on. Tina insisted on coming over to check on me, which was incredibly kind, but also kicked me into panic cleaning mode. Nothing gets you scrubbing like knowing someone's mom is about to see your living space. I was shoving laundry into closets and wiping toothpaste off the sink when the doorbell rang. It wasn't just Tina, Kayla came too. They brought coffee and pastries from the bakery near their house. Not gonna lie, those pastries might be the one thing I'll truly miss about being with Ryan. We sat around my tiny kitchen table, the one with the wobbly leg I still haven't fixed, and they filled me in. According to Kayla, this wasn't Ryan's first time spinning lies. Back in college, he told everyone he was on the baseball team. He'd actually been cut after tryouts. He once claimed he was dating a popular girl who had no idea he even existed. There was an obvious pattern with Ryan. He had built this imaginary version of himself that was more successful, more popular, more everything. As we were sitting there trying to make sense of the mess, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text after text from friends who had seen Ryan's meltdown on social media kept coming in. Vanessa was freaking out, wanting to come over with her boyfriend who happens to do kickboxing just in case. Honestly, she watches way too many crime documentaries. Meanwhile, my group chat was in total chaos, blowing up with confused messages about Ryan's dramatic subtweets. And then the doorbell rang again. I froze for a second, heart pounding, wondering if it might be Ryan. Kayla peeked through the blinds and let out a breath. It was just Cody. Apparently, Ryan had been blowing up his phone all morning too. Cody had come to warn me in person because Ryan had hinted at coming to my apartment. So there we were, me, Ryan's mom, his sister, and his coworker, just sitting in my living room on a Sunday morning, trying to figure out how to handle this man-child throwing a tantrum because he got caught in a web of lies. Honestly, if it hadn't been so stressful, it might have been funny. Imagine trying to explain this situation to someone who wasn't there. It sounded absolutely ridiculous. Cody mentioned that their boss had already heard about Ryan's social media rant. Someone had taken screenshots and sent them to HR, so Monday at work was going to be interesting. Kayla voiced what we were all thinking. She was worried Ryan might do something really stupid if he ended up losing his job too, on top of everything else. And then the doorbell rang again. This time it was the building manager, looking deeply uncomfortable. Apparently, Ryan had shown up and caused a scene in the lobby, demanding to be let upstairs to my apartment. The manager had refused, bless him, and even threatened to call the police. That was when Ryan stormed off, but not before yelling loud enough for the entire first floor to hear that I was a liar. Tina looked absolutely crushed. She kept apologizing, saying she didn't know where they had gone wrong with him. I felt awful for her. Imagine realizing that your grown son is basically one big walking red flag. Kayla, always the practical one, suggested I start documenting everything in case things escalated. We were still sitting around trying to figure out what to do next when my phone buzzed with a notification. Ryan had tagged me in an Instagram story. Against everyone's advice and my own better judgment, I opened it. It was an old photo of me, from early in our relationship, asleep on his couch with my mouth wide open. The caption read, Miss Perfect who ruined my birthday isn't so perfect. A girl like you should be grateful anyone took pictures of you at all. That was it. His big revenge, a slightly embarrassing photo from 2 years ago. I couldn't help myself. I actually laughed out loud. Tina looked startled, probably expecting me to be hurt, but honestly, if that was the worst he had on me, I knew I'd be fine. Just as we were discussing what steps to take next, there was a sudden, loud pounding on my door. We all jumped. Then we heard Ryan's voice, slurred, loud, and unmistakable. I know you're in there. Open the door. Cody jumped up like he was ready to go toe-to-toe with him, which was sweet but totally unnecessary. I was already calling building security, one of the perks of living in a slightly more expensive apartment building. Ryan kept pounding and shouting. I heard one of my neighbors open her door to see what the commotion was about. By the time security arrived, Ryan had moved on to kicking the door. The security guard didn't play around. He told Ryan to leave or the police would be called. There was some back and forth I couldn't make out from inside, and then silence. The guard gently knocked to let me know Ryan had finally left the building, but was still lingering in the parking lot. Tina was mortified. She insisted on going down to deal with her son herself. Honestly, I was more than happy to let her. She looked heartbroken and furious at the same time. It was bad enough that Ralph, Ryan's dad, had to come pick them both up. After they left, Cody and I sat there in stunned silence for a few minutes. Eventually, he broke the quiet by asking if I had any alcohol. Honestly, it felt like the only appropriate response to everything that had happened that morning. We ended up splitting a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. And this definitely counted. By the time Cody left, it was late afternoon and I was emotionally spent. Vanessa came over and stayed the night, just in case Ryan decided to make another dramatic appearance. Thankfully, he didn't. We ordered pizza, watched trashy reality shows, and tried to laugh our way through the absolute soap opera that had become my life. The next few weeks were an adjustment. Ryan ended up getting fired after skipping work for 3 days and sending a series of inappropriate emails to coworkers. He moved back in with his parents. Temporarily, according to Kayla, who I've actually kept in touch with. She's surprisingly cool and we grab coffee every now and then. Ryan tried contacting me a few more times. His voicemails ranged from angry rants to tearful apologies to weirdly nostalgic messages about the good times. I saved them all just in case but never responded. He even made a few fake Instagram accounts to message me. They were so obviously him. Who else would spell mistake as mystique? While saying you're making a big mistake. I blocked every single one. The weirdest moment of all came about a month later when I ran into him at Target. I was in the home section comparing shower curtains and there he was, holding a pack of socks, looking like he hadn't slept in days. We made eye contact, and for a split second I thought he might say something or cause a scene. Instead, he just turned around and walked away, leaving his shopping basket behind in the aisle. That was 3 months ago. Eventually, Ryan moved to another state to stay with his uncle. Tina still sends me holiday cards, which is sweet but also a little awkward. His social media has gone eerily quiet. Kayla thinks his parents finally cut him off financially and are making him get therapy. Honestly, I hope so. As for me, I'm doing okay, actually better than okay. My apartment finally feels like mine again now that I've rearranged the furniture and replaced the things that reminded me of him. The most unexpected thing to come out of all this might be my friendship with Cody. We're not dating or anything, though Vanessa keeps trying to play matchmaker, but we grab lunch sometimes and send each other dumb TikToks. It's comforting having someone who lived through the whole Ryan saga with me and understands why I now have trust issues the size of Texas. Looking back, I'm not angry anymore. Or at least, not just angry. I'm also oddly grateful. Not for dating Ryan, absolutely not, but for finding out the truth before things got even more serious. Imagine if I had actually moved in with him. Shudders.